They told me, "You're on your own financially." Then a week later, they handed my sister Clara condo keys, 2 bedrooms, a lake view, a ribbon on the door. No one asked if I had rent money. No one noticed when I disappeared. For years later, my name hit Forbes, and my research changed everything. That's when my mother Beatrice showed up uninvited, smiling like she owned the place. She said she'd come to celebrate. But in her purse was a piece of paper that made my blood freeze. I thought she wanted forgiveness. She wanted something else, something worth exactly $1 million. My name is Eleanor Voss. I grew up in a house that looked normal from the street. 2 stories, trimmed hedges. The kind of place where neighbors waved from driveways and said, "Nice family." Inside though, it was like living in a play where I was the understudy who never went on stage. My mother Beatrice ran the house like a director with one favorite actress, my sister Clara. Every conversation circled back to her. Every photo on the mantle had her in the center. If I was in the frame at all, it was by accident. Clara sparkled. She was the dancer, the baby girl, the one mom called her miracle. When she performed, Dad stood up to record it. When I brought home straight A's, he didn't even look up from his newspaper. Mom would say, "We don't brag in this house, Eleanor," but somehow bragging about Clara was fine. At 16, Clara got a car with a red bow. I got her old bus pass and a reminder to be grateful. Dinner was the same script every night. Dad talking about work. Mom praising Clara, me clearing plates while pretending not to care. The smell of lemon detergent became the scent of invisibility. I told myself I was strong, that being invisible meant I was independent. But even then, I knew it was a lie. When I got into college, I rehearsed my request for help with tuition for days. I waited until Dad was relaxed. Newspaper folded, TV humming low. "I'll need help with room and board," I said carefully. Mom didn't look up from her laundry basket. Dad just muttered, "You've got scholarships, right? You're 18 now. You'll manage." Those words sliced deeper than they sounded. You're on your own financially. That night, I filled out loan forms under a dim lamp while Clara slept peacefully across the hall. I wasn't angry, just hollow, like a door had quietly closed, and no one noticed I was still standing outside. College was a blur of labs, ramen, and side jobs. I sent short texts home at first, still hoping someone might ask if I was okay. They didn't. The family group chat kept glowing, Clara's new dresses, Clara's vacations, Clara's engagement to a guy with perfect hair. I learned to mute the notifications. When Dr. Ingrid Olsen took me on as her research assistant, I started to feel something new, seen. She called me meticulous. She said, "You don't just follow instructions, you think." No one had ever said that to me before. She introduced me to the quiet rhythm of the lab, the hum of centrifuges, the clean scent of ethanol, the small thrill when an experiment worked. It was the first place that didn't demand I shrink myself. By the time I graduated, I'd built a wall of calm around me. I'd stopped waiting for approval, stopped asking for help. I believed I was free from them until one photo shattered that illusion. Clara again, a condo key in her hand, a lake glimmering behind her. Caption, "Happy 21st baby girl," and in the background, a red bow, the same shade as the one she got on her car years ago. That's when I realized some gifts don't stop hurting, they just change shape. The photo burned through me more quietly than anger ever could. I didn't throw my phone, didn't cry, didn't call. I just stared at that red ribbon until the screen dimmed. It was the same shade as every time they'd celebrated Clara, like the color itself had been reserved for her victories. 2 bedrooms, granite counters, lake view. The post said it all. There wasn't a single message asking, How are you, Eleanor? I set the phone down face first and returned to my notes. Recording polymer dissolution rates like nothing had happened. But something did, something final. After that, home stopped being a place and became a concept I'd outgrown. My scholarship covered rent in a campus basement apartment. Thin walls, humming pipes, the faint smell of instant noodles that never left. I spent nights in the lab chasing numbers instead of sleep. Dr. Olson would check in on me, asking if I ever took a break. I'd shrug, breaks are expensive. She'd smile sadly, as if she knew that sentence meant more than I said. The next semester, she called me into her office. Warm, light, books stacked in gentle chaos, a half-finished cup of coffee beside her laptop. Eleanor, she said, you're different lately. Not in a bad way, just focused. Whatever you're chasing, I hope it's for you, not against someone else. I wanted to say it was both, but I just nodded. When Stanford offered me a fully funded PhD position, I didn't tell my parents. I didn't even tell Clara. I packed my car, a dented Honda trunk full of notebooks and wilted plants, and drove until the highway sign said California. Somewhere between mile markers, I stopped feeling like a daughter. I was something else now. Stanford was a different planet. People there didn't measure worth in attention. They measured it in discovery. I belonged to the midnight shift of the lab, pipettes, playlists, fluorescent lights. For once, silence didn't mean neglect. It meant focus. Every now and then, my phone would light up with the family chat, photos from holidays. I wasn't invited to Clara's engagement, Mom's captions about my beautiful girls. I'd scroll through them with the detached curiosity of a stranger. Then one day a text came just to me. Heard you finished your PhD, congratulations. Maybe now you can help your sister with her business idea. No question mark after the congratulations. Just expectation. I deleted the message and blocked the number. Years passed. My work turned into a startup, a small biotech company built from long nights and stubborn faith. Julian Price came aboard as a partner. Sharp, kind, grounded. We built something that mattered, something real. When investors called, they called me Dr. Voss. The same name that once meant nothing in my family group chat now opened doors in places they'd never stepped foot in. Success came quietly at first, then all at once. Funding rounds, headlines, an acquisition offer, and that's when the noise found me again. A friend texted, "Your mom just posted about you." I opened Facebook for the first time in years. There it was. Beatrice Hayes smiling proudly beside Clara. So proud of my daughters. One runs a business. The other just made a scientific breakthrough. A mother's sacrifices are finally worth it. Sacrifices. The word sat like lead in my throat. I stared at that post until the edges blurred. It wasn't just a lie. It was a rewrite. She'd erased years of silence, replaced them with gratitude she never gave. For a moment, I wanted to comment, to remind her I hadn't spoken to her in nearly a decade. But then I realized she didn't post that for me. She posted it for herself. So, I did nothing. And that's what drove her crazy. Weeks later, my assistant buzzed in through the intercom. "Eleanor, there's a woman here asking for you. Says she's family." I froze. Family. The word I'd buried years ago. "Send her in," I said, voice steady but heartbeat sharp. And when the door opened, I smelled her perfume before I saw her, vanilla and guilt, both too sweet to be real. She looked exactly as I remembered, immaculate hair, pearls, a confidence that filled any room before she spoke. "Eleanor," she said, arms wide like this was a reunion, not an intrusion. I stood up slowly. Mom. She glanced around my office, taking inventory, glass walls, framed patents, the hum of success. So, this is where all the genius happens, she said. You didn't even tell us. Imagine my surprise reading about my own daughter in Forbes. I forced a smile. You could have called. Oh, I did, she said lightly. You changed your number. I figured you were just busy, so I thought I'd visit. Family should celebrate together, right? Her tone dripped honey, but her eyes were scanning my desk, searching for something. I motioned to the chair. Sit. She opened her purse with deliberate care and pulled out a folded sheet of paper. Actually, I came because I've been thinking a lot about everything I've done for you. All the sacrifices, the years of raising you girls. It hasn't been easy. Something cold crept down my spine. What are you talking about? She unfolded the paper and slid it across my desk. This, she said, smiling. I glanced down. Typed lines, itemized, private school tuition, meals, emotional labor, and at the bottom, a neat total, $1 million. It wasn't a joke. I looked up. You're asking me to pay you $1 million for being my mother? Her smile didn't move, but her eyes hardened. For everything I gave up, for all the things you could never repay. My breath caught. Family doesn't work like that. Family, she snapped, voice suddenly sharp. Family doesn't abandon the woman who gave them everything. I swallowed hard. You chose to have me, Mom. Children don't owe their parents for being born. For the first time, she faltered. Then she leaned closer. Can't or won't. I could have had a life, a career, a husband who stayed. But instead, I gave it all to you. Her words echoed, but something inside me stayed still. I'd lived my life trying not to upset her. That ended here. I'll help with your expenses, I said quietly. But not this. Her face froze. Then you're no longer my daughter. She stood, smoothed her jacket, and headed for the door. At the frame, she turned back. Your father would be ashamed of what you've become. And when she left, the silence that followed wasn't empty. It was heavy, alive, and mercifully final. For a long time after the door shut, I didn't move. The hum of the AC filled the silence. She left behind a sterile white noise that almost sounded like peace. Then it hit me all at once. The tremor, the disbelief, the quiet ache that felt older than my bones. I sat back in my chair and stared at that piece of paper on my desk. $1 million. An invoice for motherhood. When the tears finally came, they weren't loud. They were measured, like something my body had been storing for decades, finally leaking through a crack. By morning, I wasn't crying anymore. I was done. I walked into the lab early, before sunrise, before anyone else could see the wreckage on my face. The machines hummed softly, steady, and loyal. I started a new synthesis, wrote notes with the same precision I'd always had, and told myself this was how you heal, with order, with proof, with metrics. Dr. Olson found me an hour later holding a cup of coffee. She looked at me, then at the empty space behind my eyes. She came, didn't she? I didn't ask how she knew. She always knew. She wants money, I said. $1 million. Dr. Olson didn't flinch. And what do you want? I thought for a long moment. Peace, I said. But I don't think it's refundable. That night, I sat on the bathroom floor of my office, still wearing the champagne-colored dress from the party, my hands trembling so hard I could barely breathe. The mirror across from me reflected someone calm, detached, someone I didn't recognize. The woman who built a company that saved lives was breaking quietly in the corner of her own success. I remembered every Sunday dinner where my mother said, "We do everything for you girls," every silent ride home where I tried to believe her. Every time I excused her cruelty as stress. And suddenly I could see it for what it was. Not sacrifice, but control. She gave so she could own. I texted Julian, "Don't come by tonight. I need to think." 2 days later, I met with my lawyer. I told him to create a trust for my mother, enough to cover her basic needs, nothing more. Strict conditions, I said. She can't touch the principal. No withdrawals beyond the monthly stipend. He raised an eyebrow. "You're protecting her from herself." I shook my head. "I'm protecting me from her." The calls started the next week. At first, they were angry. "You'll regret this, Eleanor. You can't erase me." Then they turned pleading. "I forgive you, sweetheart. Just send the money so we can be family again." By the third round, they became threats. "Maybe the media should know how ungrateful you are." I stopped answering. Julian watched me one night sitting on the couch, my phone lighting up over and over. "You don't have to read them," he said. "I'm not," I told him. "I just need to see how far she'll go." Eventually, the messages slowed. The noise faded into static. And one morning, there were no more missed calls, no new emails, just quiet. That quiet felt earned. A month later, Dr. Olson called me into her office again. "You've been working like someone's chasing you," she said softly. "Is it over?" I nodded. "Almost." She handed me an envelope. "Then take this weekend off. Go somewhere that isn't built from adrenaline." Inside was a printed ticket to a coastal retreat, a place where the lab noise would be replaced by waves. That night, I stood by my office window. City lights reflecting off the glass like distant stars. I thought of the woman who'd raised me, how she'd mistaken fear for love and guilt for loyalty. And I thought of myself, finally untethered, finally breathing in a life that wasn't borrowed. The acquisition ceremony came 3 months later. Our company had been valued at $80 million. Investors, journalists, champagne, the whole illusion of triumph. I smiled for photos, shook hands, said all the right words. No one saw the small scar beneath the perfection, the space where I'd cut off the last thread of her control. After the speeches, I stepped outside for air. The night was crisp, Pacific wind sharp enough to feel like cleansing. Julian joined me, handing me a glass of water instead of champagne. "You okay?" he asked. "I am," I said. And I meant it. But peace, I've learned, doesn't stay still for long. 8 years passed. The company thrived. We built. We healed. We lived. And then one autumn morning driving through Seattle for a conference, I saw her again. She was sitting on a curb outside a coffee shop, a paper cup in her hand, gray hair, tangled, eyes dim, but unmistakable. For a second, I forgot how to breathe. The world went quiet in that dangerous way it used to. I parked, bought 2 coffees, and sat beside her. She didn't recognize me at first. Then she whispered, "Eleanor," like a question she was afraid to finish. We talked for an hour. Half-truths, fragments, things too fragile to name. She said she was sick. Pride had taken what the world hadn't. When I left, I arranged help through the trust. Not as a daughter repaying debt, but as a human refusing cruelty. I didn't forgive her that day, but I stopped letting her story define mine. And when I drove away, the city looked softer, like it was finally letting me go. I didn't tell anyone about that meeting for a long time. Not Julian, not Dr. Olson. It didn't feel like a secret. It felt like closure. I didn't have to perform. The following week, I got a call from the social worker overseeing her case. They said she'd accepted the help, but refused to list me as emergency contact. I almost laughed. Even at the end, she wanted the last word. I didn't fight it. Instead, I focused on the small mercies. She was safe. She had food. She wasn't on the street. The rest was no longer my job to fix. Some nights I'd sit on my balcony looking over the city thinking about how peace isn't loud. It doesn't roar like revenge or crash like heartbreak. It hums, steady, quiet, like the machines in the lab that once held my world together. Dr. Olson retired that winter. At her farewell dinner, she took my hands and said, "You've built everything you once wished someone would build for you. Don't forget to rest inside it." I promised I would try. Julian and I grew our company slowly, carefully. We created scholarships for girls in science. Kids who reminded me of myself before the silence hardened. Each time I saw one of them light up over a breakthrough, something in me softened, too. One morning, a letter arrived. No return address, just my name in a shaky hand. Inside, one line on plain paper. "Thank you for the coffee." No apology. No signature. And yet it was enough. That evening, I drove to the lake near our old neighborhood. The water was still, the kind of stillness that holds its breath before dawn. I whispered a goodbye no one heard and let it sink into the ripples. Freedom didn't look like victory. It looked like calm. For the first time, I understood, love doesn't always heal you. Sometimes it teaches you who you must become without it. People think closure is a conversation, some neat ending where everyone hugs and cries. It's not. It's the moment you stop waiting for the apology that will never come and you live anyway. I don't hate my mother. I don't love her either. I just wish her peace somewhere far from mine. If you've ever had to build yourself from the silence your family left behind, know this. You don't owe anyone for surviving. You don't owe them your forgiveness to stay free. Share your story in the comments. Someone out there needs to hear it. And if this story found you, stay.